A few years ago, I was 32 and driving across the Midwest for an exhibition. I was a freelance photographer, capturing quirky roadside attractions. I thought I knew what I was doing, but that trip still haunts me. One evening at dusk, I stopped at an old diner off the highway. It was the only place open for miles. I walked in and slid onto a bar stool at the counter. I ordered a burger and waited, listening to the clinks of silverware and muted conversations. A group of locals sat in a booth, speaking in low tones. I caught snippets, strange things, and last man to drive through. I was curious but shrugged it off. Just wild stories, I thought. I finished my meal and got back on the road. It was dark, with only my headlights cutting through the night. That's when I started seeing them, shadows in my rearview mirror. At first, I thought it was fatigue playing tricks on me. I blinked and they'd vanish. I'd glance back again, but there was nothing there. I shook my head. It was just my imagination, I told myself. A few nights later, in a cheap motel, I was editing my photos. I noticed a strange blur in one shot, like a figure behind a tree. My heart raced. I couldn't remember anyone being there. I felt a chill creeping down my spine. I convinced myself I was just tired. The next day, I pulled over at an abandoned gas station. It looked like it was stuck in time. I stepped out to take some photos. The air felt heavy and the hairs on my neck stood up. It felt like someone was watching, but I turned around and there was no one. I hesitated, feeling uneasy. Before I got back to my car, I thought I heard a whisper. It scared me and I drove off, unsure if I'd actually heard anything. Then, on another night, I stopped at another empty spot to grab a few last shots. Dusk settled in, and it felt eerie. I raised my camera and saw her, a woman far off in the distance. She stood still, just looking. I thought she might need help. I lowered the camera for a moment, trying to take it all in. But when I raised it again, she was gone. My heart raced. I looked around, feeling lightheaded. Was it just shadows playing tricks again? In the end, I really couldn't say for sure what those experiences were. I still think about them. I wonder what shadow lurked behind me, keeping me company on those desolate roads. What I once thought was harmless folklore started to feel much darker. As I sat there, lost in thought, I suddenly heard someone call my name. It sent goosebumps down my arms. I froze, looking around the empty space. There was nobody there. I stood still for a moment, my heart pounding in my chest. It felt like the air around me had thickened, pressing down, almost suffocating. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaky and echoing back at me in the stillness. Nothing, just the emptiness of the place. I took a step back, eyeing the shadows that loomed around me. They felt alive, as if they were leaning in closer. Was it just me, or did the temperature drop? I snapped my head toward the door, and for a second I thought I saw movement at the edge of my vision. I cursed under my breath, forcing myself to stay calm. I swore I wouldn't let my imagination run wild again. I backed away from the counter and turned to leave, but then I heard it again, a faint whisper, now tinged with urgency. My name. Mark. The voice was nearly a hiss. It wasn't the kind of call you want to hear when you're alone. I tried to rationalize it, thinking maybe it was just the wind. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. I stepped outside, the night air cool against my skin. I thought about the diner. Why was I drawn there? I tried to push the thought aside and drove away. The road stretched before me, an endless void, punctuated by the dim light of my headlights. I glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see something lurking back there. But nothing moved, only the empty road behind me. As I drove on, I felt like I'd escaped whatever haunted that diner. But the feeling didn't last long. My mind was racing back to that last photograph I took, the blur in the trees. I couldn't shake the thought that it might not have been just a trick of the light. What if the figure was more than just a figment of my imagination? What had it seen? I needed answers. I took a detour to find the gas station I'd visited earlier, not with the intention of returning, but to gather my thoughts in a familiar place, to see if it would illuminate something I missed. I pulled up, the deserted lot casting long shadows under the moonlight. The gas station looked even more eerie in the dark. As I stepped out of the car, I felt the prickling sensation on the back of my neck again. I walked cautiously, scanning the area. That's when I spotted something near the entrance, a piece of paper flapping in the breeze. Curiosity got the better of me. I approached it, and as I bent down to pick it up, my pulse quickened. It was an old flyer, faded but still legible. Last known sightings, Route 66. My eyes widened as I read further. There were names, dates, accounts of people who disappeared along the very roads I traveled. Then everything went dark. The lights of the gas station flickered, then failed completely. I stood there, engulfed by a suffocating darkness, my breath rising in panic. I strained to hear anything, a car, a voice, anything. And in that quiet, I sensed I wasn't alone. A weight pressed against the air around me, and I realized I had to get out, and fast. I sprinted toward my car, fumbling for the keys in my pocket. The darkness felt alive around me, each rustle of leaves a whisper of things just out of sight. I cursed myself for the mistake of returning to this place. As I reached the door, a chilling breeze swept past me, and I swore I heard a laughter echo behind me, soft and mocking. I fumbled again, finally managing to unlock the door. As I clambered inside, I glanced back at the gas station. The shadows seemed to twist in a way that made my skin crawl. I slammed the door shut and turned the ignition, but the engine sputtered. My heart dropped. This was not happening. Come on, come on, I urged the car, twisting the key with a desperation that was beginning to flood my veins with dread. Finally, the engine roared to life, and I slammed the gear into drive. The headlights pierced the darkness, illuminating the gravel of the lot. I skidded out of there, tires biting at the loose gravel. I didn't look back. The road ahead felt like my only escape, but adrenaline surged through me, and I forced myself to stay focused. The last thing I needed was to lose control. But the thoughts kept rushing in. The flyer, the name, was that just a coincidence? Those disappearances couldn't be linked to me, could they? Shaking my head, I fought the panic that clawed at my throat. I refused to believe I was being followed. As I drove, my mind flicked between fear and rationality. It was just an old gas station, just a flickering light. The shadows? Nothing more than a trick of the light. I needed to find somewhere safe, somewhere familiar. My old friend Jake lived nearby, and I headed toward his place, hoping a few minutes spent with someone who knew me would calm this storm brewing inside. But my relief was short-lived. As I pulled up to his driveway, I noticed something strange. His front porch light was off, and his car was missing. I felt a twinge of unease. Hadn't I just seen him post something about being home? Maybe it was old. All those thoughts of darkness were messing with my mind. I stepped out of the car anyway, feeling the chill settle into my bones. It was quiet, too quiet. I knocked on the door, the sound echoing through the stillness. I didn't hear anything. My instincts screamed for me to turn around, but something compelled me to stay. I pulled out my phone. No signal, of course. Then I heard it, a soft thud, coming from the side of the house. My heart raced again, this time with a different kind of fear. I stepped carefully toward the sound, half expecting a cat to dart out from the bushes. But my breath caught when I saw a figure hunched low, peering through the window. I froze, unsure of what to do. Should I call out? But before I could decide, the figure turned, and I met the hollow gaze of someone unrecognizable. Mark, they called, and my blood ran cold. I took a step back, realizing I was being drawn into something much darker than I ever imagined. I stumbled back, instinct screaming at me to run, but my feet felt glued to the ground. The figure stepped forward, and the porch light cast a distorted glow over their face, but I still couldn't decipher who they were. The voice was familiar yet distant, like a memory that had become warped over time. "Mark," they said, urgency creeping into their tone. "Who are you?" I managed to choke out, still trying to catch my breath. A flicker of recognition rushed through me as their features came into sharper focus. It was Sarah, an old friend from high school. But something was off. Her eyes were wide, almost frantic. "They're coming for you! You have to go!" she exclaimed, glancing over her shoulder as if expecting someone to emerge from the shadows. "Who's coming?" "No time! Just trust me! Get in!" She gestured vaguely toward the back of the house, her voice shaking. The unease curled back into my gut. The last time I'd seen Sarah, we'd lost touch after graduation. Why would she be here now, panicked and looking like she'd seen a ghost? Before I could decide, I heard another thud, this one louder and closer. My pulse raced again. I couldn't ignore it. I took a step back, my instincts kicking in hard. This wasn't just a bad dream. "Mark, please," Sarah said, her voice cracking. "You don't know what's happening. You need to trust me." I took a breath, weighing my options. The night outside felt heavier, the shadows creeping closer. Whatever was out there felt too tangible to ignore. In a split second, I decided. "Okay, just tell me what's happening." She motioned for me to follow her and darted along the side of the house. I hesitated, glancing one last time at the entrance, but the thud turned to footsteps, and I knew I had to move. I sprinted after her, heart pounding. We ducked into the narrow space between the house and the wooden fence separating it from the next yard. Sarah pressed her back to the wall, trying to quiet her breaths. "Are you okay?" I whispered, the panic thick in my throat. "No, I haven't been since—" She paused, her eyes darting. "After that gas station." "Wait, what do you mean?" I asked, memories of the station flashing through my mind. "You were there?" She nodding, her expression turning grave. "I saw the flyer, too. It's not just any coincidence, Mark. Those disappearances?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "They're connected. We have to leave now." Before I could process her words, I heard voices. Approaching. They weren't far off, speaking in low tones, deliberate and slow. Fear coursed through me. What had I stumbled into? "Shh," Sarah hissed, pressing her finger to her lips. The voices drew nearer, and I felt the urge to bolt, but Sarah's presence tethered me. I needed answers, even if they could cost me everything. Then something moved in the shadows behind them. My breath hitched in my throat as I strained to see through the dark. That's when I caught sight of a figure emerging from the cover of the trees, and it wasn't alone. "Someone's here," I whispered, dread pooling in my stomach. Sarah's eyes widened, and she turned to me. "We have to go, now." But before we could make a move, the figure came into the light, and my heart dropped. I recognized that face, but I never expected to see it here. "Mark," it called, "it's time to come home." I felt the blood drain from my face as I stared at the figure. It was Carl, my childhood friend, someone I hadn't spoken to in over a decade. But it wasn't just his sudden appearance that paralyzed me. It was the way he looked, hollow and haunted, like a shell of the person I once knew. "Mark," he repeated, stepping closer, urgency etched across his features. "You can't stay here. You don't know what's coming." "Why are you here?" I stammered, bewildered. "What do you mean, come home?" "That's not important. We've been looking for you," he said, glancing nervously toward the shadows. "What matters is that you can't trust anyone, not even her." He gestured toward Sarah. My heart raced, caught between disbelief and creeping dread. "What do you mean? I've known Sarah forever." "Exactly. Think about it. She shows up just at the right time. It's too convenient. Carl's voice trembled, and the shadows loomed closer behind him. "You need to listen. We don't have much time." Sarah stepped forward, her expression shifting from panic to anger. "I'm not your enemy, Carl. Let's just tell him what's really going on." "No," he shouted, eyes wild. "You don't understand. They're already here." The tension hung in the air as the voices drew nearer, and I could hear footsteps crunching through the dry leaves. The confluence of fear and confusion left me paralyzed as I tried to sort through what they were saying. Were they both trying to protect me, or was one of them leading me into a trap? Then, without warning, a rustling erupted from the bushes behind Carl. I felt the instinct to flee, to run and never look back. But Sarah's desperate eyes locked onto mine, grounding me momentarily. "Mark, please," she cried, reaching out. "We need to go. Trust me." Another figure broke free from the trees, a tall man, cloaked in a dark coat, his face hidden beneath the brim of his hat. The air thickened with his presence, a palpable sense of dread settling in my gut. I could feel my instincts screaming at me to take cover, to disappear. Carl turned, eyes wide. "No, it's too late." And just like that, the night erupted into chaos. I shoved Sarah back against the wall as the man advanced, hand outstretched, and suddenly a sharp light cut through the dimness like a razor. I squinted against the brightness, the world narrowing down to that single beam piercing the night. "Mark!" The voice was familiar but distorted. I could barely register it as the figure launched forward, the shadows blending into one disorienting mass. Before I could react, there was a sharp crack, like thunder echoing in the stillness, and everything went dark. I blinked, struggling to process the sudden shift. The last thing I remembered was the chaos dissipating into silence. My mind raced as I fought to gather my thoughts. Where was I? What had just happened? Then everything fell eerily still, too still. "Mark?" A voice trembled in the darkness. It was Sarah, but she sounded far away. "Sarah, where are you?" I called out, panic creeping back in. That's when I realized someone wasn't just lurking anymore. Someone had taken us from the yard. I strained to hear Sarah, but the darkness swallowed her words. The air felt heavy, as if we were trapped in a vacuum. I took a shaky breath, trying to calm the fluttering in my chest. "Sarah," I called again, my voice echoing in the silence. "I'm here," she said, closer this time. "I think we're in some kind of room. It's dark." "Can you see anything?" I asked, fighting the urge to panic. My heart pounded in my ears as I fumbled my way toward her voice. There had to be light somewhere. I needed to see. "No," she replied. "I can't see anything, but I can feel something cold. It's—" She broke off, a sharp intake of breath following. "It feels wrong, Mark." "Stay close," I urged, moving carefully toward where I thought she might be. My hands brushed against a surface, rough and gritty. I traced my fingers along it, feeling for an exit or a light switch. We need to find a way out of here. Footsteps echoed nearby, unnervingly rhythmic. My stomach tightened as I froze, holding my breath. The sound faded, but I was certain we weren't alone. I wanted to scream for help, but every instinct told me that would only make things worse. "Mark?" Sarah's voice quivered now. "What was that?" "I don't know," I said quietly, "but we can't stay here. There has to be a door or something." I moved in her direction, every nerve ending buzzing with anticipation. There was something about this place. It felt wrong, like we were intruding on something much bigger than ourselves. Suddenly, a faint glow flickered in the distance. I squinted against the dark, hope surging in me like a lifeline. "Sarah, I see something." "Where?" "There," I pointed, even though I didn't think she could see it. "Let's get to it." I hurried toward the glow, but the closer I got, the more I sensed a weight pressing down around us. The air felt charged, electric, and I could hear whispers, faint and indecipherable. I glanced back at Sarah, who seemed visibly shaken. "This isn't right," she whispered, fear lacing her tone. "This feels like a trap." I swallowed hard, weighing my options. Every instinct screamed to turn back, but as the shadow of the glow stretched out before us, I couldn't stop moving. We needed answers. The glow revealed a cracked doorframe, splintered wood barely holding together. It was our only option. I reached for the handle, which turned easily under my grip. My heart raced as I pushed it open. "On three," I said, locking eyes with Sarah. 1, 2, 3. We rushed out into the corridor, but the moment our feet hit the ground, an alarm blared, piercing and relentless. Red lights flashed overhead, and the whispers grew into a cacophony. "Run!" I shouted, pulling Sarah down the hallway. We sprinted past closed doors, our breath coming in ragged gasps. Then I spotted something, a large poster on the wall, flickering under the strobe lights. The text read, "We are watching you." Panic surged through me. I barely registered the sound of footsteps behind us, but they were undeniable. They were getting closer. "Mark, what do we do?" Sarah shouted, gripping my arm almost painfully. "There," I pointed ahead, a staircase twisted downward, leading into darkness. With no time to think, I pushed through the door and leaped down the steps. That's when I felt it, a sudden cold breeze brushing against my skin. Then I froze. We weren't alone after all. In the dim light at the bottom of the stairs, something shifted. That's when I saw it, a silhouette waiting for us, watching from the shadows. The figure in the shadows was tall and unsettling. A wave of dread washed over me as I tried to make sense of what I was seeing. I could barely breathe. "Sarah," I whispered, keeping my voice low, "we need to—" But before I could finish, the silhouette took a step forward. The movement was smooth, almost gliding. I felt my heart drop. This wasn't good. "Mark, what is it?" Sarah's voice shook next to me, her grip tightening on my arm. I didn't answer. I was too busy scanning the area for an escape route. The dim light illuminated just enough for me to see. The walls were lined with strange symbols, etched deep and covered in a dark residue that made my skin crawl. Then, just beyond the figure, I noticed something glinting, metallic. The figure spoke, its voice a low rumble. "You shouldn't be here." I instinctively stepped back, pulling Sarah with me. "We're sorry. We didn't mean to intrude." My voice was barely above a whisper, but I was desperate to sound calm. The figure tilted its head, as if considering my words. The glint and shadows caught my attention again. It was a large knife, clutched tightly in its hand. "Leave now," it ordered, the warning clear. I glanced at Sarah, her eyes wide with terror. We were running out of time. I could hear footsteps again, growing louder, echoing from above. Someone was coming. "Let's go," I urged, my voice now firm. I turned on my heel, yanking Sarah along as we sprinted toward a narrow passage to our right. We stumbled forward, the air becoming even colder. The whispers intensified, swirling around us like a storm, making it hard to focus. "What is happening?" Sarah cried, panic saturating her words. "I don't know. Just keep moving," I gasped. Each pulse of noise felt like it was aimed directly at me, trying to pull me apart. We darted down the passage, and that's when I spotted them. Doorways lining the walls, each leading to a different unknown. There wasn't time to explore. We had to find a way out. "We can't just keep running blindly," Sarah protested, her breaths coming in quick bursts. "What if we get trapped?" I barely had time to respond before we hit a dead end. A solid wall blocked any further escape. I felt my chest tightening, panic climbing. "Back," I said, turning like a coiled spring, ready to shove my way back into the corridor. But just when I did, the figure reappeared, blocking our exit. "We can't go this way," I shouted, desperately searching for a window, a crack, anything. Then I noticed something. On the wall behind the figure, faint markings glowed dimly. They looked like the same symbols from the previous walls. As they pulsed, I realized they had a rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. "Mark, what do we do?" Sarah was pleading, her eyes filled with fear. Maybe if we try to touch them," I suggested, my voice growing unstable. There was no logic left in my mind, just survival. But as Sarah stepped forward, the figure lunged. It was all a blur, the knife glinting, the air thickening, and a scream rising in my throat. Then everything went dark. I gasped, the darkness swirling before me as I struggled to find my breath. The weight of fear pressed against my chest, and panic surged in my veins. I blinked, trying to regain my bearings in the pitch-black abyss. "Sarah?" I called into the void, my voice trembling. No response. I pushed myself up from the cold ground, shivering as a gust of icy air rushed past me. I felt disoriented and scared. Where was I? I scrambled to my feet, swaying slightly as I tried to orient myself. Then a faint light flickered in the distance. I squinted, the glimmer growing brighter, until it illuminated the dim surroundings. My heart raced as I moved towards it, hoping to find Sarah. I stumbled through the darkness, feeling the rough, uneven ground beneath my feet. The whispers returned, more distinct this time. They weren't just echoes, they were voices, and each word chilled me to the bone. "Find her. You must find her." "Who? Who is it?" I shouted at the shadows, my fear morphing into frustration. But the voices faded into the distance, leaving me alone again. As I approached the light, I noticed more of the strange symbols around me. They were etched into the walls, glowing softly like ancient runes. I reached out to touch one, and the moment my fingers made contact, a jolt of energy coursed through me. The sensation was electric, but it was also unsettling. I pulled my hand back quickly, my heart racing. "What the hell is this place?" I muttered to myself. Then I heard it. A soft whimper. I turned instinctively, and my stomach dropped. There, huddled against a wall, was Sarah. Her eyes were wide with fear, and tears glistened on her cheeks. "Mark!" she cried, relief washing over her face like a tide. I rushed to her side, enveloping her in a tight embrace. "I thought I lost you," I breathed, holding her tightly. "We have to get out of here. We can't go back," she whispered, gazing up at me with wide eyes. "The figure, it's not just a person." "What do you mean?" I asked, pulling away slightly to look at her. It changed," she stammered, her voice faltering. "It wasn't just standing there. It transformed, Mark." "What?" The word felt heavy in my mouth. Transformed into what? Before she could answer, a low growl echoed through the corridor. The sound was primal and terrifying, vibrating in my bones. My blood ran cold. The whispers intensified, the glowing symbols pulsing erratically, as if sensing an approaching presence. They shifted from a heartbeat to a warning, and dread pooled in my stomach. "We need to find another way out," I said urgently. "Can you walk?" "Yes, I can," she replied, trembling but nodding. I took her hand, and together we moved towards the flickering light ahead, each step weighed down by uncertainty. But as we approached, I saw that it wasn't just a beacon of hope. It led to a massive door, decorated with the same ominous symbols. "What is this?" I asked, my heart pounding as panic clawed at me. "Mark, I feel like we're being watched," Sarah said, her eyes darting around. She was right. I could feel it too. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath us, a rumble that split the silence. I turned back, fear flooding my veins. Something was coming. "We have to hurry," I urged, adrenaline coursing through me. "We need to figure out how to open that door before it gets worse." But even as I spoke, I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps closing in, heavy and deliberate. Someone, or something, was hunting us down. "Mark!" Sarah shouted, pulling me towards the door, just as a shadow fell over us, looming large against the light. Before I could respond, the door burst open, revealing a bright tunnel. We both jumped forward, but just as we crossed the threshold, I caught a glimpse of the figure lurking behind us, knife raised. I hesitated, realizing that whatever we were about to face was far worse than the danger we had just escaped. And then everything went dark again, a smothering void swallowing us whole. I blinked rapidly, my eyes fighting against the bright tunnel. My heart raced as I tried to make sense of what just happened. We had escaped, but at what cost? The darkness had felt alive, and now, emerging into this glowing passage, I couldn't shake the feeling of being hunted. "Mark, what do we do now?" Sarah asked, her voice small and shaky. I turned to her, noticing the fear etched on her face. It was a stark reminder of how close we had come to something horrible. "Let's keep moving," I said, though uncertainty hung between us. The brightness of the tunnel felt otherworldly, its walls shimmering like liquid light. I took a deep breath and led the way forward, gripping Sarah's hand tightly. We ventured deeper, and the air grew warmer, making me wonder whether we were in a tunnel or some kind of bizarre chamber. The whispers had faded, but now there was a steady hum, almost like a heartbeat. It was unnerving, but somehow mesmerizing. "Do you hear that?" I whispered to Sarah, slowing down. She nodded, her eyes wide. "It's like it's alive," she replied, gripping my arm. Suddenly, the tunnel split into two paths, one to the left, dimmer and shadowy, and the other to the right, filled with more light. My instinct screamed at me to take the bright path, but the fear in Sarah's eyes made me hesitate. "Which way?" I asked, knowing that any choice we made could lead us deeper into danger. "Let's go right. It feels safer," she replied, hoping to convince herself as much as me. We took the right path. As we moved forward, the soothing glow transformed into flickering lights, almost like flames. They danced along the walls, illuminating strange shapes that I couldn't comprehend. Then, out of nowhere, the hum amplified into a deafening roar. The lights dimmed, and a flash of darkness enveloped us. I stumbled, pulling Sarah close. "What the hell was that?" I shouted, my voice barely audible above the chaos. And just like that, the tunnel shifted. Walls closed in around us, and the ground beneath our feet trembled again. Panicking, I glanced back, feeling the pressure of uncertainty bear down. "There's something behind us," Sarah screamed, her terror palpable. The roar faded into a menacing growl, and I knew we had to move. Without thinking, I ran forward, dragging Sarah along, our footsteps echoing in the confined space. I felt a surge of desperation, fueled by the knowledge that whatever hunted us was relentless. Then I saw it, a door, slightly ajar, but inviting. My instincts told me to leap forward, but as I reached for the handle, I hesitated. A terrible realization struck me. A flicker of movement caught my eye in the shadows. That's when I saw it. The figure, shifting in the darkness, larger than the one we had left behind. Its eyes glowed, locked on us with an intensity that froze me in place. "Mark, we have to go, now!" Sarah shouted, yanking on my arm. Just as I turned, the door swung wide open, revealing a blinding white light that filled the corridor. It beckoned us, promising safety, but the figure lurched forward, and I realized we were running out of time. "Go!" I yelled to Sarah, pushing her in front of me as I followed. The world dissolved into blinding light, but my heart pounded with the knowledge that this wasn't over. As we crossed the threshold, darkness engulfed us once more, but something felt different. I could still sense it, the lurking presence, just behind, waiting patiently for us to falter. And I had a feeling we hadn't escaped, we had only moved into a new nightmare. As the light faded and I opened my eyes, the dim remnants of a familiar street came slowly into focus. I lay on the pavement, breathless, staring up at the moonlit sky. The weight of fear lifted momentarily, but the tightening knot in my stomach quickly replaced it.
I was free, at least for now. "Mark!" Sarah's voice broke through the fog of confusion, and I turned my head to see her not far away, huddled against a lamppost. She looked disoriented, her expression painting a picture of sheer terror mixed with relief. Are we safe?" I asked, my voice a raspy whisper. I think so," she replied, shaking her head as if trying to clear it. "But I don't know how we got here." I pushed myself up, surveying our surroundings. We were on the outskirts of what appeared to be the town I had stopped in days ago, the diner not far down the road. But the air felt different, charged with an unsettling energy, as if the night itself was holding its breath. Did we really escape? I pondered aloud, eyes lingering on the darkness dancing in the corners of the street. I couldn't quite shake the feeling that we hadn't seen the last of the figure, or whatever had been chasing us. I don't want to think about it right now," Sarah murmured, wrapping her arms around herself. "I just want to leave." "Let's get back to the diner," I muttered, a strange compulsion pulling at me. Perhaps if I returned, it would provide some clarity, or perhaps reveal the answers that lingered in the corners of my mind. I need to know what this all means. "Mark, no!" Sarah's eyes widened in alarm. "We need to find help." But something deeper compelled me, a gut feeling that brushed against the back of my thoughts. I have to go. I have to see. I began walking further. I began walking toward the diner, feeling the path ahead pull me in. Each step felt surreal, as if the shadows were watching my every move, daring me to turn back. When we arrived, the diner stood eerily quiet, its neon sign flickering, as if trying to signal something. Whether it was danger or a sanctuary, I couldn't tell. Inside, the atmosphere was dense with anticipation. I scanned the booths, wary for something, anything that could explain the chaos that unfolded. As I approached the counter, the waitress from the first night I had arrived stepped out from the back. Her eyes narrowed as she recognized me. "You shouldn't have come back," she warned, voice low and cautious. It's not over, is it?" I stammered, a sudden chill settling over me. "People have disappeared. I need to understand." Her expression softened, yet the worry persisted. "You don't want to know what lies beneath these roads," she said softly. "The stories, the shadows, they hang on to those who look too closely." "You mean it's all real?" Sarah added, her voice quieter now, almost pleading with her to elaborate. The waitress hesitated, glancing towards the door as if expecting someone to enter. "Those who wander too far don't always return whole. Some are, you might say, changed." Just then, a cold gust shot through the diner as the door swung open, and in came a figure dressed in black, their face obscured by the brim of their hat. My heart skipped a beat. "We were just talking about you," the waitress said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You'd better leave now." I turned to Sarah, panic washing over me. "We can't just stay here," I whispered frantically. As we moved toward the door, shadows twisted around me, curling at the edges, taunting me. I could hear a faint whisper, echoing my thoughts back at me. "You should have never left. It's not over." Suddenly, I felt a heavy weight press down on my chest, as if the very air was constricting around me. The figure stepped forward, and as they lifted their shadowed face, I caught a glimpse of eyes glinting like stars in the dark. I hesitated. The shadows danced with glee, mocking my paralysis. "What do you want?" I shouted, clutching at Sarah's hand. "Time to come home," the figure hissed, the words curling around me like smoke. In that instant, something primal clicked, and I felt urgency rise within me. "Run!" I shouted, grabbing Sarah and sprinting toward the door. Just as we crossed the threshold, I felt a jarring pull, as if reality itself was stretching. I could feel the weight of the darkness behind us, inching closer. We burst into the night, and I could see the gas station in the distance. "There!" I shouted, desperate for some semblance of control. But in the distance, the shadows felt alive, boiling around me, lapping at my heels like a hungry beast. We ran toward the gas station, this time feeling the weight of those who had vanished but never returned. I still think about that night sometimes, and I wonder if we really escaped or if we're just wandering deeper into a different kind of path. Just like then, I'm still not sure what lurks at the edges of my vision, waiting for moments of weakness. I never went back to that diner, nor have I returned to the Midwest. But I know the shadows are there, watching, waiting. And I still don't know if what happened was just a trick of the night or something far darker.